And as we go, you'll find that Paul's arguments, he actually gives 4 or 5 different arguments for a behavior that he wants to change. And so we start out, I praise you for remembering me in everything, and for holding to the traditions just as I pass them on to you. Does that sound like Paul has been with the Corinthians so far? He's been a little hard on him, hasn't he? You're divided over Paul and other preachers. You're divided over whether to keep this guy in the church when he's doing a terrible thing. You're divided over taking one another to court. Paul is fairly consistently over the first 10 chapters had an axe to grind at every turn. Something he's heard about what's going on among them that he worries him or concerns him, and he takes it on with them. Here he starts out by saying, I praise you for remembering me in everything. But I want you to realize that but is, as Pee Wee Herman had it, a big but. I want you to realize that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is man, and the head of Christ is God. So here Paul starts out with a hierarchical ordering of the universe, and we'll get back to how that sits with whatever else we've read before. But for now, let's just take it. The head of every man is Christ, the head of the woman is man, and the head of Christ is God. And so we get women introduced as a thing, and it happens that we have a Corinthian carving of a woman with something on top of her head. So to review, God is the head of Christ, who is the head of man, who is the head of woman. That seems to be how Paul sets the table for his conversation in this chapter. And then he goes straight to implications. Every man who prays or prophesies with his head covered. Okay, so head meant in the first bit seemed to mean somebody over somebody else. God is the head of Christ. Christ is the head of a man. Man is the head of a woman. But here we're back to the physical head. Every man who prays or prophesies with his head covered dishonors his head, as in the first kind. Uh, we'll get a little bit of who's on first in this passage. It's a little hard to follow, so try to stick with the definitions that you're gathering as you go. But every woman who prays or prophesies with her head uncovered dishonors her head. So, man with something covering dishonors, woman without something covering dishonors. Now, at this point, it's a level playing field. Paul wants different behaviors from each, but we don't have any idea why he's writing this. Because we don't know whether it's men who are wearing hats or women who aren't, men who are wearing long hair or women who aren't. We don't yet know that until the very next verse, because he continues about the women but not the men. It is the same as having her head shaved, says Paul. For if a woman doesn't cover her head, she might as well have her hair cut off. But if it's a disgrace for a woman to have her hair cut off or her head shaved, then she should cover her head. So this lengthening of the address of women suggests to us and to interpreters and commentators that the behavior that he is going after is the women's departure from the norm that he's named rather than the men's, right? So far we're just making our way into the passage.